I used to believe every family kept a few secrets, embarrassing stories, hidden letters, things whispered about when children weren't supposed to listen. But I was wrong. My family didn't have secrets. They had buried crimes, lies built like walls, and one truth my mother took to her grave. It started the day of her funeral. The rain fell in cold, endless sheets, turning the gravel driveway into mud. People came dressed in black, their umbrellas like dark petals opening and closing as they entered the house. Everyone looked at me as if I was a stranger intruding on my own grief. My mother had been the heart of the family, yet the only warmth that day came from the candles flickering near her photograph. A photograph that didn't belong to the woman I thought I knew. When the priest finished, relatives swarmed like crows around the dining room table. I could hear them already fighting over her belongings, pretending to grieve while their voices hissed with greed. She must have left something valuable. I heard my Uncle Peter whisper. She was always sentimental about her things. Lydia, his daughter, laughed softly. Or maybe she left it to her precious son. He was always the favorite. I sat alone near the kitchen window, clutching a cup of untouched coffee. The smell of wet earth and wilted roses filled the air. My reflection in the glass looked older than I remembered. Grief does that, it steals time. But something inside me felt restless, as if she was still trying to tell me something. Hours passed before I finally slipped away from the noise. The house was full of ghosts. Not the kind that haunt, but the kind that linger in memories you can't escape. I found myself walking toward the attic. It was where my mother used to hide our Christmas gifts, her old journals, and boxes of photographs. The stairs creaked under my weight. Up there, the air was heavy with dust and silence. A thin beam of light from the small window cut through the darkness. My flashlight swept across boxes labeled winter clothes, old letters, and memories. Then I saw it. A small wooden chest, half hidden under a tattered quilt. The wood was dark, the brass corners aged, and there, taped to the bottom, was a yellowed note with my name written in my mother's handwriting. My chest tightened. She had left something for me. I lifted it carefully, but it was locked. No key, no clue. I ran my fingers over the lid. It had a faint carved symbol, a circle divided by a line, something like an old family crest. Before I could think further, footsteps sounded behind me. I quickly slid the box back under the quilt. Uncle Peter's voice called, "You up there?" I turned, trying to look casual. He stood at the top of the stairs, his sharp eyes scanning the room. "Nothing worth keeping here," he said. "Come downstairs. We're reading the will." He smiled, but there was something in his eyes. A flicker of recognition, maybe fear. He knew about the box. Back in the living room, the family gathered around a small table where a lawyer unfolded a few papers. The will was short, almost disappointingly so. Jewelry to one cousin, furniture to another. But then came the line that froze the room. "To my son. He already knows where to look." Every head turned toward me. I felt their stares burning into my skin. I forced a calm smile, but my heart pounded. My mother wasn't talking about a place. She was talking about the box. That night, when the last guest left and silence finally settled over the house, I crept back to the attic. I searched through her old photo albums. Behind one photograph, my parents smiling at a picnic, something glinted. A tiny brass key was taped to the back. My breath caught. I ran to the chest, unlocked it, and lifted the lid. Inside were old letters tied with ribbon, some photographs, and a folded document at the bottom. The first photograph showed my mother standing beside a man who wasn't my father, both smiling in front of a lake house I had never seen. The first letter began, "My son, if you are reading this, then I am gone. And it's time for you to know the truth I've hidden to keep you safe." The words blurred as I read. Safe from what? I pulled out another envelope, this one labeled 1998, the year my father supposedly left us. "They told you your father abandoned us," it said. That was a lie. He didn't leave. He was taken. And the people responsible are sitting at our family table. The floor seemed to vanish beneath me. Taken? By whom? By family? A crash echoed downstairs. I froze. Someone was still in the house. I closed the chest and hid it back beneath the quilt. Flashlight beams flickered through the cracks in the attic door. Lydia's voice whispered, "Check up here." My pulse thudded. They were looking for it. I pressed myself into the shadows until the light disappeared. When the footsteps faded, I knew one thing: whatever was in that chest, they already knew it existed. And they were terrified of me finding it. That night, I didn't sleep. Every sound felt like footsteps. Every shadow looked like a watcher. I realized I couldn't stay. My mother's letters were the only truth I had now, and I was about to find out just how dark that truth really was. Morning came with a gray, washed-out sky. I hadn't slept a minute. The letters were still spread across my desk, their edges curling from the candle's heat. My mother's words looped through my mind. He was taken. I wanted to believe she was paranoid, maybe delusional from grief. But deep down, I knew she wasn't. My mother was the most rational woman I'd ever known. If she wrote it, it was true. I decided to get out of the house. I stuffed the letters and the brass key into my backpack. Uncle Peter was already in the kitchen, stirring coffee. He smiled without warmth. "Rough night?" he asked. "You should stay here. Family needs to be together now." His tone made it sound less like advice and more like a command. I forced a polite nod. "I just need some air." His eyes followed me all the way to the door. Outside, the driveway was slick with rain. I could still feel his gaze through the window as I walked away. At a small cafe in town, I spread the letters across the table. Most were dated between 1995 and 2005, my childhood years. Each one hinted at something hidden. "They know what Daniel found. Your uncle is asking too many questions. The papers are safe for now." And one note that made my stomach twist: "If anything happens to me, go to the address on the back." The address was written in shaky handwriting. A place 2 towns over, near the coast. I knew what I had to do. I caught the next bus heading east. Rain streaked the window as the countryside blurred past. With every mile, my mother's life seemed to unravel in my hands. She had been protecting me from something, from them. When the bus stopped, I stepped out into a small fishing town that smelled of salt and rust. The address led me to an old house by the shore, its paint peeled by years of wind and sea spray. I knocked twice. No answer. I turned to leave when a voice came from behind the door. "You look just like her." The door opened a crack, and an older man stepped out. His gray hair was wild, his eyes sharp but kind. "You're her son, aren't you?" he said. "Come in before someone sees you." Inside, the air smelled of old wood and tobacco. On the mantel sat photographs of my mother, smiling, younger, happy. In every photo beside her stood the same man, the one from the picture in the chest. "Is that Daniel?" I asked. He nodded. "Your father." I felt dizzy. "He's alive." "Was," he said softly. "Your father didn't leave. He discovered something your family built its empire on, and he tried to expose them. When he got too close, they made him disappear." I could barely breathe. "You're saying my own family? Your uncle, your grandfather, and the rest of them," he interrupted. "They controlled everything: money, property, people. But your father found proof. He brought it to me before they came for him." "Who are you?" I whispered. "Thomas," he said. "Your father's oldest friend. He told me to keep something safe for his son." "You." He handed me an envelope sealed with red wax. The same circular symbol was stamped into it, the one carved on the chest. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a small silver key and a note from my mother. "For the place where it all began." I stared at the key. "What place?" Thomas looked at me sadly. "You already know. You've seen it in the photograph, the lake house." Before I could respond, a sharp sound cut through the air. Tires screeching outside. A black car rolled up the narrow road. Thomas's expression hardened. "They found you." He pulled back the curtain. 2 men in suits stepped out, scanning the house. "Go through the back," Thomas said. "Take the path down to the docks. Don't stop for anything." "But what about you?" "I've been hiding for 20 years. Go." I grabbed the letters and the silver key and ran. The rain had turned to mist, clinging to my clothes. I sprinted down the muddy trail behind the house, slipping on wet roots. Voices shouted in the distance. I didn't look back. When I finally reached the docks, a small boat rocked gently against the posts. I untied it and pushed off, rowing toward the fog that covered the water. My arms burned, but adrenaline kept me moving. The car's headlights appeared through the trees. Someone yelled, "He's headed for the water!" I rowed harder. The fog swallowed me whole. By the time I reached the opposite shore, night had fallen. I hid the boat among the reeds and collapsed against a tree, gasping. My backpack was soaked, but the letters and key were safe. I walked for what felt like hours until I found a small motel at the edge of town. The clerk didn't ask questions. I paid cash and locked myself inside the room. My reflection in the mirror looked hollow, eyes red, hands shaking. I spread the letters on the bed again. One of them had a different handwriting, not my mother's, not my father's. It said, "If you've come this far, they already know. The key opens the door they tried to bury, the house at the lake, the truth in the cellar. Trust no one." I didn't sleep. The rain beat against the windows like fingers tapping. Every sound made me flinch. I had no one to call, nowhere to go. But I knew what I had to do next. At dawn, I borrowed a map from the motel clerk and traced a route to the lake, an isolated area deep in the woods. It was the same lake from the photograph. I packed what little I had, took one last look at the gray horizon, and left. The road was long and quiet. Every turn felt like walking deeper into the past, toward something waiting for me. The trees grew denser, the fog thicker. Then, through the mist, I saw it, the old house by the water. Half collapsed, overgrown, and silent. The lake stretched behind it like a mirror of black glass. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. My mother had been here. My father had died for what was hidden here. And now it was my turn to uncover it. I stepped through the broken doorway, the floor creaking under my boots. The smell of mold and decay filled the air. In the dim light, I could see old furniture covered in dust sheets. Photographs on the wall turned yellow with age. One picture stopped me. My parents standing on the porch, smiling, unaware of what was coming. Upstairs, the rooms were empty. But in the study, half covered by a fallen shelf, I found a heavy iron door embedded in the wall. My pulse raced. The silver key fit perfectly. I turned it. The lock clicked. A gust of cold air escaped as I pulled the door open. Behind it, a narrow staircase led down into darkness. I hesitated, gripping the flashlight. Then I descended. The air grew colder with each step. At the bottom was a small cellar. Papers, boxes, and old recording equipment were scattered across a table. A stack of ledgers lay open, filled with numbers and signatures. And there, taped to the wall, was a newspaper clipping. "Businessman Daniel Corvin missing. Suspected foul play." My father's name. On the table lay a tape recorder, still intact. I pressed play. The tape crackled, then a man's voice, my father's voice, filled the silence. "If you're hearing this, they finally got to me. I can't run anymore. They found out I copied the records. Your uncle, your grandfather, they won't stop. They built everything on stolen lives. They used charity fronts to wash their blood money. Your mother, she's trying to protect you. Don't trust anyone from our family. Take what you find here and finish what I started." My throat tightened. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from crying out. He sounded calm, resigned, like a man who already knew his fate. Then I heard something upstairs, a floorboard creaking. They had found me again. The sound came again, slow, deliberate footsteps crossing the wooden floor above me. I turned off the flashlight. The cellar went black. My heart thudded so hard I could feel it echo in my throat. Dust drifted from the ceiling with each step. Whoever was up there was moving carefully, trying not to make noise, which meant they weren't strangers. They knew I was here. I pressed my back against the wall and listened. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a whisper. A woman's voice. "Lydia, you shouldn't have come here," she said softly. Her tone wasn't angry. It was calm, too calm. like she was speaking to someone already trapped. I held my breath. The cellar door creaked open, letting in a sliver of light. Her silhouette appeared at the top of the stairs. "You found it, didn't you?" I didn't move. She stepped down, one slow step at a time. "You don't understand what you're doing," she said. "You're going to destroy everything our family built." I finally spoke. "Our family built lies, Lydia. It's already destroyed." Her eyes glinted in the flashlight beam. "You think you're some kind of hero? You think exposing all this will bring him back? He's dead. They'll kill you too." She reached for the bag of letters. I backed away. "Stay where you are," I warned. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she sighed, her voice softening. "I don't want to hurt you. I can't let you do this." Before I could react, something metallic flashed. She had a knife. I lunged sideways, knocking over the table. Papers flew into the air. The flashlight fell, rolling across the floor, its beam spinning wildly. Lydia grabbed my arm, trying to pull the bag from my shoulder. We struggled, crashing against the shelves. Glass shattered. My hand hit the recorder, pressing play again. My father's voice filled the cellar once more, echoing off the walls. "They won't stop until the last piece of evidence is gone." That voice, calm, certain, seemed to give me strength. I shoved Lydia back. The knife clattered to the floor. She slipped, falling against a crate. For a moment, we both froze, breathing hard. Her expression changed, not anger, not hate, but something like guilt. "You don't get it," she said, tears mixing with dust on her face. "I didn't come here for the money or the company. I came because they sent someone else. He's not far. If he finds you, you won't make it out alive." I stared at her. "Who?" Before she could answer, a shout echoed from outside. "Lydia, are you done down there?" It was Uncle Peter. His voice was close, too close. She grabbed my arm. "Run," she whispered. "Go out the back, through the old tunnel. There's a hatch behind the furnace. It leads to the lake." I hesitated. "Why are you helping me?" She looked away. "Because he was my uncle too, and I loved him." Without another word, she pushed the crate aside, revealing a rusty hatch door. "Go!" I crawled through the narrow tunnel, the smell of earth and rot filling my lungs. Behind me, I heard Peter's voice shouting. Then a gunshot. I flinched. Another shot. Silence. When I finally reached the end of the tunnel, I pushed the hatch open and climbed out near the lake's edge. Cold air hit my face, carrying the scent of rain and pine. The water stretched dark and endless before me. The moonlight shimmered on the ripples. Behind me, the old house stood like a shadow. I could see movement in the windows, flashlights, figures. They were searching for me. I ran along the shoreline, my shoes sinking into the mud. I needed to get to the road, to anyone, anywhere that wasn't here. But a voice stopped me. "Going somewhere?" Uncle Peter stepped out from behind the trees, his coat drenched, his gun steady in his hand. His smile was thin, like it cost him effort. "You've caused quite a mess, boy." I froze. "You killed him," I said. "My father. You and the others." He tilted his head. "Killed? That's such an ugly word. We just removed a problem before it ruined the family." He forgot who he was. "And now you're making the same mistake." He took a step closer. "Give me the bag." I gripped the strap tighter. "You'll have to kill me too." He sighed. "That can be arranged." He raised the gun. But before he could fire, a sound echoed. The sharp crack of a branch behind him. He turned. Too late. Lydia stood there, her face pale, blood on her arm, holding the old revolver I'd seen once in my grandfather's study. "Put it down, Dad," she said. Her voice shook, but her aim didn't. Peter stared at her, disbelief flashing across his face. "Lydia, what are you doing?" "Ending this," she said. He took a step toward her. "You wouldn't shoot your own father." Her hands trembled. "You're not the man I thought you were." For a moment, everything went still. The rain, the wind, even the lake seemed to hold its breath. Then Peter moved. Lydia fired. The shot echoed across the water. Peter stumbled, eyes wide, and fell to the ground. Lydia dropped the gun, her body shaking. I ran to her, catching her before she collapsed. "It's over," I said, but she shook her head weakly. "It's never over. There are others. You have to finish it." Her breathing slowed. Tell them we weren't all monsters." Then her eyes closed. The world around me blurred. I stood there in the rain, the bag of evidence heavy in my hands, watching the blood mix with the mud at my feet. Sirens wailed in the distance, faint at first, then closer. Someone must have called the police. I didn't run this time. I just stood there, waiting, the weight of years of lies pressing down on my chest. When the flashing lights finally cut through the darkness, I raised my hands and stepped forward. The officers shouted, but when they saw the gun on the ground, the papers clutched in my hand, and the tears streaking my face, they lowered their weapons. "It's all in here," I said quietly. Everything they did. Days turned into weeks. The investigation that followed ripped through the entire family like wildfire. The documents exposed decades of corruption, money laundering, extortion, and murders hidden behind charity fronts. My grandfather's company collapsed within months. Arrests were made. Names that once commanded fear became headlines. And somewhere in all that chaos, my parents' story finally came to light. My father hadn't run away. He had been murdered for trying to tell the truth. My mother had hidden everything to protect me, knowing one day I would have to face it. When the trials ended, I left town. The house at the lake was demolished, but I went back one last time before it happened. The roses my mother planted still grew wild along the path. The lake was calm that morning, peaceful, as if it had been waiting for this silence. I walked to the edge of the dock, the same place where everything ended, and held the silver key one last time. It gleamed faintly in the sunlight, a small piece of metal that had unlocked decades of buried pain. I whispered, "It's done, Mom." Then I dropped it into the lake and watched it sink until it disappeared beneath the ripples. The wind carried the scent of pine and rain. Somewhere far off, a bird called, the sound of something alive, something free. For the first time in years, I felt the weight lift from my chest. The secrets, the fear, the shadows, all of it finally gone. I turned to leave, knowing I'd never return. But as I reached the road, I glanced back one last time. The fog was rising over the water, and for a second, I thought I saw two figures standing on the dock. A man and a woman, hand in hand, watching me with soft smiles. My parents. Maybe it was the mist. Maybe it was something else. But I smiled back anyway, because in the end, the truth had survived. And sometimes that's the only justice the living ever get.